Hey, go to home. This video's been up. Okay. Bear with me. Bear with me if you're with me. It says video unavailable. Weaving stronger innerwear. This is what we need to be able to see. Is that the title changed? I put it to what I actually wanted to be, but you are seeing it through restream. So you don't actually get to see what I thought you would see, and now I've got to change it, but I can't, and so I am. Let's do it, here we go. I'm going as fast as I can. I'm moving through this process as fast as what I can. I ask you if you can say the same. In tonight's session, we're going to look at the theme of forgiveness. Calling authentic leaders of self, CELLA now. Let's merge worlds, www.URLs. Don't you see the world that we create in the domain? Oh, here it is my name. To fame when we turn the lights on inside of you, because that is what we came here to do for each other. Don't you see the fortune that you have? Somebody's finding you charming. Would you say it's true? I'd say I'm gonna play with that game. And now also say, leave your comment, please. Let me know that you are tuning in. I'm going live over on Instagram too. It's true, calling authentic leaders. I won't sing the whole thing, don't worry, it's just while I get myself organized. And as I do, if you would be willing to please actually share this with someone or a group where you feel people would benefit from hearing what's real from my perspective. Well, who am I? And I'm an empowerment coach who came here to roast, fully committed the sacred sojourn of now. This is how I stand before you now, as I do. That's actually not fully true, because I'm sitting in this moment, which is the one I am in, and you are too, as you listen to this. And then I say, it is true that I am now live over on Instagram. It's great to be with you too. Hey, 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 we are now on 3 platforms. I hope we can play nicely together the way we're called to do. Oh, I hope you know. Hope you know you are loved fully as you are, calling authentic leaders to the throne. of your own. Inner kingdom, the kingdom within, is where you can not actually sin if you are willing to see sin as the words we speak against ourselves or others, and then think we're better or worse than them. Well, who is them but us? But we are all but mirrors to one another and must trust. We must keep some layers on, while also getting ourselves more comfortable when we no longer fully identify with the branding we originally thought that we supported, and then found it's not about being original at all. What do I mean? Well, it would seem we've been deceived. We see it, and now many believe it more than whatever we did before. And so I say, I'm gonna sip my coffee, and then I see what's missing. My friend, just one moment then. Before we go any further, I need to know that I did the best I can, which means the ring must come to the fore of the moment. And now you see that camera action, we're here now. Here's the thing about forgiving. In the valley of transformation, we'll find that we oftentimes go on an adventure that will change our beliefs about ourselves and how we fit in the world, because we will gain experiences that only exist beyond the limits of our previous comfort zone, and once stretched it rarely returns to the same form it had before. During this phase, others can encourage us from the sidelines, but no one can go through the full transformation with us, for it must be walked by the one living the experience alone. Accepting the call is what comes next. That's on page 125 of Fully Committed. What I would like to read for you instead is what I wrote about accountability, the definition of which there are many inside of the text. Here I wrote with fiction and conviction, which two more definitions one could read now, but will not. Roost and comment too, I highlighted them for myself, but accountability was what I wanted to read. The fact or condition of being accountable for results, responsibility, accountability and responsibility, response and account. One is math and one is response, the alternative to reacting, which is using the creative components in an old and familiar way, forgetting to play with the magic of the moment so we can introduce something new into the moment we're in. It's true, though, when we stop sinning, speaking ill against ourselves or others, we actually being fully ourselves. the CELL-F of faith over fear, instead of letting the false emotion appearing real draw near. We choose to heal instead of always being on the hamster wheel and wave and spiral of healing. Instead we choose to be actually here as we are fully present, calling authentic leaders of self to this fountain of youth that is inside the vortex of you. If only you knew with your intuition, remember the magi of your world. Please remember you are the one you've been waiting for. Forgiveness is how you set yourself free. The L of let go of your attachment to not now, and love what arises for is showing up now to be handled, processed, and moved through the energetic system of you and who and whose you are, the vessel of you known as your name. Your name is not who you are, but it's a part of your identity, which is why you have been deceived to believe your family name came with benefit, and it does if you claim it as who you are instead of what you would be converted into if only you did not know, because you weren't here. But instead I'm going to give to you the secrets I learned the hard way, and now get you to buy with a Patreon membership if you're willing to sponsor the creative muse of me and mine, Laura J. It's true, I will do the best I can to continue to play in the moment. Yesterday I invested time to create different memberships where you can choose how much you wish to give, so I can lift the spirits and hopes and sights of so many young artists who are struggling because they're looking to the adults around them who are wearing personas, pretending not to see the Nazi plan at play. Now it's true, the way that we all rise is to stand on common land and to know how to claim it, which is what I did when I got summoned and found out it was for my person, which was the same aspect of me. The hue of the man of me was what got locked up under the mental health act, which I believe could be a threat to anyone experiencing cognitive dissonance, which does not fit the mainstream narrative, which is just shit, and we both know that. But if you don't know what else to go for, then you just go for what is, because it's safer. So trying to wake others up to the truth wasn't helpful. We didn't offer something better, which is what I believe we can do now, which is why I want to invite you to album 23. It's true that you could be on it if you're willing to go inward on a journey with me and others as crazy mad as me, but not mad. Though if we get there, it's okay too, because we'll hold sacred space, and that's what counts. And it's time for us to actually be there for one another in ways we didn't know we could before, and now we do, and so we will do it as best as what we can. It's 111 in the recording when I say that, not because it's how long I've been on, but because that is how long I was on. Before then I came on because I'd things to do unexpectedly before. And what's more is that I still showed up and came for Jack Kerouac's poem. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs and the square holes, the ones who see things differently than our founder rules, and they've got no respect for the status quo, while some may see them as the crazy ones. We see genius because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. So we will, so it is, so it mote be. Did you know the National Alliance on Mental Health Illness? I want to read this because this is actually serious. The National Alliance on Mental Health characterizes psychosis as disruptions to a person's thoughts and perceptions that make it difficult for them to recognize what is real and what isn't. These disruptions are often experienced as seeing, hearing, and believing things that aren't real, or having strange, persistent thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. But the Mental Health Act does not take into account the energetic nature of the world we live in that cannot be explained rationally by a ration of lies that denies the supernatural elements of life. I can appreciate how crazy my claims seemed for where I was then, and the fact I was sharing information in pieces others couldn't put together as fast as I was expressing them, nor did I have the full picture the way I thought I did at the time, as we so oftentimes don't when we think we know, or think that information is actually what's going to solve anything. For I have a concept on that notion I want to share with you before the end of tonight. But until things got real and I lost the deciding vote over my own life, I was having too much fun to slow down. And while I returned to my naturally higher vibing state days after my insane adventure began, and I refused to let fear overtake me any longer than it already had, while also moderating my expression of joy more appropriately for the laboratory setting I was being observed within, I then had a lot of lived experience that didn't match the way I'd thought the world was beforehand, which took time to unpack, while I rebuilt my damaged inner web and continued to face my own denials. It's been a journey which starts and ends with joy and leaves an urn between, which is a ballot box I was protecting. Better than the 2020 US election. Couldn't resist in some ways, but my survival archetypes were still transitioning into their sacred sides as I owned the label of crazy, taking solace in Jack Kerouac's poem that I already read. Here's to the crazy ones. What I would love to be able to share with you, in addition to the definition of peaceful, inner, which are both acronyms, warrior, which has two sides, both a sacred and scared side, to the same archetype, which are familiar patterns that get filled in with energy, either intentionally or by default. It is by design or default that we create. Trust is a huge part of that walk, so much so that one of the definitions of person is a trust. For the script writers have been very clever in setting traps for those too trusting of authority they have derived their identity from. For do you not see the entity in identity? I didn't until recently either. If not, and if you did, good for you. Wordplay. That's the way we break down the spells, baby. Which is why I've learned to see authority as the author I tied my identity to and no longer do. Having learned who and whose I am as one standing, as one willing to stand, alone until others are willing to stand too, and we truly become all one, as we were always meant to do. So I messed that last sentence up, and it's such an important one. I want to read it again. Which is why I've learned to see authority as the author I tied my identity to, and no longer do, having learned who and whose I am as one willing to stand alone, until others are willing to stand too, and we truly become all one, as we were always meant to do. That is page 75. Next to the definition of surety, another very important one. If you didn't know of this one, you will be an implied surety for your person, which you have, which is the government construct that creates an interface for what is unreal to interact with that which is real, which is why we don't need to act in the plays. We just need to actually claim our right to maneuver through them, collect our goods, and carry on without having harm or loss or fraud committed against us. I wanted to make sure everyone is also aware of the Meads versus Meads case law precedent of 2012, where a man named Justice Rook basically deemed anyone using a common law argument that doesn't know well enough that common law in its truest form, which is unwritten and unlimited, anyone that is drawing from that needs to know that it must be uncapitalized, unhyphenated. It's never been written, therefore it is not limited. It is not told how it can be. It just must not be capitalized in any way, for that is how the different jurisdictions are called under capitis diminutio, maxima, media, and minima, which is on page 59, and the breakdown of land, air, and water, which are the three jurisdictions under law, are broken down on page 58 and 59 also, as well as when I mentioned the 1215 Magna Carta and Article 61, which was a rabbit hole I went down at the beginning of this whole pandemic, which I say is written with an E for the energy that we have given it. When our energy is being harvested to varying degrees by corpses that feed off our false emotion appearing real and confine willful ones who don't buy the poisoned mainstream narrative as easily as those willing to settle down and fall in line with the rest. Like in the movie Monsters, Inc., where laughter produces more energy but cannot be harvested by the machines in the same way fear can be. We must lift our voices to sing in harmony within this universe, to empower ourselves instead of the machine or corporate entities preying on our energy. There is no us versus them. When we all bleed red until corporate forms leave us black and blue, as the colors of ink used to seal our fate, if not aware that purple is the color of sovereign souls who claim the right not to be under, sue in French, their right in French, reign, rule as king or queen of a corpse that contracts our substance to fit its forms. I knew my choice would come with consequences, but the day itself was relatively uneventful after the speakers wrapped up and the crowds got marching orders to draw more attention to protestations against the unlawful mandates, whose present saw needs. Draw more attention to the protestations against the unlawful mandates those present saw need to defeat. I want to say that mandates is essentially like when you have actually learned how to claim your right to be who you truly are as a woman or man in your private capacity, with all rights reserved at all times, that you can draw from at any time when you feel like someone has trespassed on your rights. You can actually claim that that right was trespassed on, that a correction needs to be made, and then that man or woman will not be taken to further action to have it remedied because it would be dealt with. But if it could not be, then we would need to resolve it lawfully, which is when a common law charge would become a criminal charge, so long as there were to be a victim who not only is willing to take the stand, but actually has standing in the matter. Because if we have no standing, then we have no legs to stand on when we do take the stand. Any statuses are only posing anyway. So any man or woman acting as a lawyer, for instance, of any capacity, they've already sworn an oath to the enemy, essentially, because the same one that is judging is also getting paid from the same pot as what the one that is judging the case against you is essentially getting paid through. So you're doomed if you do, and you are definitely doomed if you don't. But if you claim the right not to do it their way and actually lay the lay of the land, then that is when the clan has to follow you, because you've paved a way through that others can follow too. And that is what I'm doing my best to do with the things that I am doing, the way that I am doing it, as best as what I can as an authentic leader of myself. Peaceful Inner Warriors United is the initiative that I started several years ago when the concept dropped to me, and now I've been able to include in the book, for which I am grateful to be able to have completed, for it took 5 years to write in a month, which individualism and collectivism are big parts of the motivational needs theories. And I have to be very honest that in the scheme of things, I was maneuvering this in a way that I hadn't fully understood, because there is a literal experience of things. There is a mythic, symbolic, and energetic level of that very same thing. And if we don't know what we're looking for, then a lot will slide by and we won't even notice it. So I don't know that I am going to be able to find what I was looking for. But what I do know is that my ego had been hit hard, and my sense of self-worth was in the gutter, along with my self-esteem and self-belief. But getting offered the position of cashier in the interview was the start of my comeback, and I am grateful. I remember having seen a message earlier that day to accept unexpected offers. So when the offer was made, I accepted with gratitude, without any idea that my country was about to go through what my Chinese students had been experiencing already for several months. And that goes back to the story of Maybe, which is so fantastic. And as I say that, I do believe I came across the part on forgiveness. So I will actually share the story of Maybe, and then I will also share the definition of vex. To make someone feel annoyed, frustrated, or worried, especially with trivial matters, such as what has been happening, which is why I say that COVID is actually the certificate of vex with an E, not an A, for the A doesn't actually exist since there's still a trial going on. So nothing's been approved. So the A doesn't actually exist. So it's only an E. So it's the certificate of vex, identity, death. A for the I, or A for the 1, and I for the 9 of 19. So when we start to see that it is the death of the individual for the sake of the collective, as to how the CCP have been able to rule in their country, and by saying theirs as if it's separate and not connected to ours, is like saying Canada is not as close as what it could be if we do not do what I believe this message is helping to do, which is part of the reason that I'm doing it. I do believe that it is meant to be part of the tipping point. If you are watching this message, please make sure that it reaches another who will benefit from it, another group on Telegram, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Twitch, whatever mechanism it is that you use to actually let others know that there are people that are striving for something better for us all. Please know that that is exactly what I am doing and fully committed. The Sacred Sojourn of Now is the book that I wrote, and I even got committed in the process of writing it, literally for 2.5 weeks, when I said I was here to help bring peace to this world, which is what this book is meant to be, just an introduction to. Not that this is all about peace, though peace is part of an acronym for passion, enthusiasm, authenticity, clarity, and encouragement that allow us to find our tribe, understand what's ours, love what arises, and let go of our attachment to the not now. These are the things that we somehow have to do, and forgiveness is a huge cue. So what I am going to do for my YouTubers is to plug this baby in to my computer in hopes that it saves the computers or the phone's juice long enough for us to get through this. It doesn't always work. But if it does, trust this computer. Okay, this accessory does not appear to be supported. Huh. Oh my God, that's funny. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so I don't know. Is it working? Is it working? Well, I guess we will find out. I guess we will find out. Okay. 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 Now we are back. And I have taken on an accent for this next part, but I will stop it quickly. I just need some coffee. Okay, sometimes I just like to be a little silly, you know? Play a little. It's fun. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about forgetting what happened or letting someone take advantage of our kindness by letting it happen again. Forgiveness is about giving ourselves love and acceptance where another took advantage of the trust we gave them and now must take back. Separate the actor from the act and extract the fact or lesson you no longer wish to attract. That is how I have found forgiveness without being a doormat any longer. Resentment keeps us from retrieving the lesson from the interaction we no longer wish to magnetize toward us and keeps us feeding the memory. Forgive yourself for learning the hard way. Recognize the pattern the other gave you an opportunity to face and clear the charge within you around, and call your power back from those who did you wrong. Not doing so keeps you in between them and their karma, for what goes around comes around, if we get ourselves out of the way by coming back present to play in a new way. We teach people how to treat us, so use the past as contrast to get clear on what you want instead. So I thank those who gave me hard lessons I no longer wish to repeat, and I let them feel the loss of my presence in their lives, for they helped me see my own value, and that is priceless. Don't let resentments fester, or they'll keep you from the gift the present moment is. With that, I would also like to say I wasn't as healed when I wrote this as what I feel I am now. And what I have come to realize is that we can't just leave people in the cold. We don't necessarily need to let people into our inner circle. And yet we have to figure out how to actually hold one another responsible, accountable, liable. We have to be willing to find out where people are at. Vanity, the quality of being worthless or futile. These are things that are just so obvious. We're oblivious to them until we are. Like the situation, the Uyghur and Falun Gong people in China, I mentioned on page 17, as per what was being discussed in the UN. It is not okay for people to be over there and for us to just say, oh, that's just China, they're different. Well, excuse me, no, that is not a good enough excuse. And then I understand there's the whole meddling aspect. Everyone, like every household is different. Every household has different belief systems. Like you mate with someone and then together you create new rules. And then oftentimes with the divorce rate, it seems that the rules that the two that co-produced don't agree. And then we have two households with one child shared between them or more children. And it's just like, God, we are so compartmentalized. I believe that we came here to no longer deceive others by coming clean as to how we've allowed ourselves to be corrupted in the name of belonging, buying respect, and seeming to self-actualize through things instead of treasuring who we've been, are becoming through the journey of life, and who we've loved in the process. For love is the whole point. Love is the whole point. It's like the story about when fear was walking in the dark and saw a light, and saw a house with lights in the distance it came to overtake. To frighten the homeowner, it made scary noises all around before then knocking on the door. But when faith answered, there was no one there. For faith and fear cannot coexist within the same space. And if we'll allow ourselves to feel fully, without judgment of what is showing up to be healed and integrated, love will always win. Love will always win if we are willing to be the surety for love and nothing less. And it isn't conditional love either. That is one expression of love. But what is an unconditional love, and how do we move toward that? How do we have that for ourselves so we have it to give, so that we have the mirror to be able to not fear it when we find it outside of ourselves and say, this must be too good to be true. I don't know. Peaceful inner warriors, united and untied from the not nows that need no longer steal our power. For that is what the not now moment will do if we let it. If we forget our own resilience and we forget the fact that we must get out of denial about the fact that we've all got some resistance, resentment, and revenge, which are the dysfunctional R's that lead us into our scared side, where regret is generally the reward. And pride tends to keep us from feeling fully the pain of this dysfunctional dynamic until it's too late. Let's not wait to find compounded compassion for one another during this scary time in our shared story. Love is the solution that fear needs us to forget. So may we remember we are all in this together. For far too long, the public cry has been on the war, or has been for the war on terrorism, by strategists who knew this would only grow the very focus of these efforts, war and terror. The law of non-resistance says, what we resist persists. So may we shift our focus and bring love back into the frame. Which takes us to the next section we are going to read, which is from the complete works of Florence Scovel Shinn, The Game of Life and How to Play It. We are going to read the chapter on the law of non-resistance, which is the reason that I switched over to it. Oh, really? Love is the next chapter? No, it's after Casting the Burden. Okay. And also that one. Okay, the law of non-resistance. Here we go. Okay, so the law of non-resistance. Resist. The law of non-resistance from The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. The law of non-resistance. Resist not evil, be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. Nothing on earth can resist an absolutely non-resistant person. The Chinese say that water is the most powerful element because it is perfectly non-resistant. It can wear away a rock and sweep all before it. Jesus Christ said, "Resist not evil," for he knew in reality there is no evil, therefore nothing to resist. Evil has come of man's vain imagination, or a belief in two powers, good and evil. There is an old legend that Adam and Eve ate of Maya, the tree of illusion, and saw two powers instead of one power, God. Therefore, evil is a false law man has made for himself through psychoma or soul sleep. Soul sleep means that man's soul has been hypnotized by the race belief of sin, sickness, and death, etc., which is carnal or mortal thought, and his affairs have outpictured his illusions. We have read in a preceding chapter that man's soul is his subconscious mind, and whatever he feels deeply, good or bad, is outpictured by that faithful servant. His body and affairs show forth what he has been picturing. The sick man has pictured sickness, the poor man poverty, the rich man wealth. People often say, why does a little child attract illness when it is too young even to know what it is? When it is too young even to know what it means? I answer that children are sensitive and receptive to the thoughts of others around them, and often outpicture the fears of their parents. I heard a metaphysician once say, if you do not run your subconscious mind yourself, someone else will run it for you. Mothers often unconsciously attract illness and disaster to their children by continually holding them in thoughts of fear and watching for symptoms. For example, a friend asked a woman if her little girl had had the measles. She replied promptly, "Not yet." This implied that she was expecting the illness and therefore preparing the way for what she did not want for herself and child. However, the man who is centered and established in right thinking, the man who sends out only goodwill to his fellow man, and who is without fear cannot be touched or influenced by the negative thoughts of others. In fact, he could then receive only good thoughts, as he himself sends forth only good thoughts. Resistance is hell, for it places man in a state of torment. A metaphysician once gave me a wonderful recipe for taking every trick in the game of life. It is the acme of non-resistance. He gave it in this way. At one time in my life, I baptized children, and of course, they had many names. Now I no longer baptize children, but I baptize events. But I give every event the same name. If I have a failure, I baptize it success, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. In this we see the great law of transmutation, founded on non-resistance. Through his spoken word, every failure was transmuted into success. For example, a woman who required money and who knew the spiritual law of opulence was thrown continually in a business way with the man who made her feel very poor. He talked lack and limitation, and she commenced to catch his poverty thoughts. So she disliked him and blamed him for her failure. She knew in order to demonstrate her supply, she must first feel she had received. A feeling of opulence must precede its manifestation. It dawned upon her one day that she was resisting the situation and seeing two powers instead of one, so she blessed the man and baptized the situation success. She affirmed, as there is only one power, God, this man is here for my good and my prosperity, just what he did not seem to be there for. Soon after that, she met, through this man, a woman who gave her a service rendered several $1,000s, and the man moved to a distant city and faded harmoniously from her life. Make the statement, every man is a golden link in the chain of my good, for all men are God in manifestation, awaiting the opportunity given by man himself to serve the divine plan of his life. This law is true of nations as well as individuals. Bless a nation, send love and goodwill to every inhabitant, and it is robbed of its power to harm. Man can only get the right idea of non-resistance through spiritual understanding. My students have often said, I don't want to be a doormat. I reply, when you use non-resistance with wisdom, no one will ever be able to walk over you. Another example. One day I was impatiently awaiting an important phone call. I resisted every call that came in and made no outgoing calls myself, reasoning that it might interfere with the one I was awaiting. Instead of saying, divine ideas never conflict, the call will come at the right time, leaving it to infinite intelligence to arrange, I commenced to manage things myself. I made the battle mine, not God's, and remained tense and anxious. The bell did not ring for about an hour, and I glanced at the phone and found the receiver had been off that length of time, and the phone was disconnected. My anxiety, fear, and belief in interference had brought on a total eclipse of the telephone. Realizing what I had done, I commenced blessing the situation at once. I baptized its success, and it affirmed I cannot lose any call that belongs to me by divine right. I am under grace and not under law. A friend rushed out to the nearest telephone to notify the company to reconnect. She entered a crowded grocery, but the proprietor left his customers and attended to the call himself. My phone was connected at once, and 2 minutes later I received a very important call, and about an hour afterward, the one I had been awaiting. One's ships come in over a calm sea. So long as man resists a situation, he will have it with him. If he runs away from it, it will run after him. For example, I repeated this to a woman one day, and she replied, "How true that is. I was unhappy at home. I disliked my mother, who was critical and domineering, so I ran away and was married. But I married my mother, for my husband was exactly like my mother, and I had the same situation to face again. Agree with thine adversary. Agree with thine adversary quickly. That means agree with the adverse situation. That means agree that the adverse situation is good, be undisturbed by it, and it falls away of its own weight. None of these things move me is a wonderful affirmation. The inharmonious situation comes from some inharmony within man himself. When there is in him no emotional response to an inharmonious situation, it fades away forever from his pathway. So we see man's work is ever with himself. People have said to me, give treatments to change my husband or my brother. I reply, no, I will give treatments to change you. When you change, your husband and your brother will change. One of my students was in the habit of lying. I told her it was a failure method, and if she lied, she would be lied to. She replied, I don't care. I can't possibly get along without lying. One day she was speaking on the phone to a man with whom she was very much in love. She turned to me and said, I don't trust him. I know he's lying to me. I replied, well, you lie to yourself, so someone has to lie to you, and you will be sure it will be just the person you want the truth from. Some time after that, I saw her, and she said, I'm cured of lying. I questioned, what cured you? She replied, I have been living with a woman who lied worse than I did. One is often cured of his faults by seeing them in others. Life is a mirror, and we find only others. Life is a mirror, and we find only ourselves reflected in our associates. Living in the past is a failure method and a violation of spiritual law. Jesus Christ said, behold, now is the accepted time. Now is the day of salvation. Lot's wife looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt. The robbers of time are the past and the future. Man should bless the past and forget it, if it keeps him in bondage, and bless the future, knowing it has in store for him endless joys, but live fully in the now. For example, a woman came to me complaining that she had no money with which to buy Christmas gifts. She said last year was so different. I had plenty of money and gave lovely presents, and this year I have scarcely a cent. I replied, you will never demonstrate money while you are pathetic and live in the past. Live fully in the now and get ready to give Christmas presents. Dig your ditches and the money will come. She explained, I know what to do. I will buy some tinsel twine, Christmas seals, and wrapping paper. I replied, do that and the presents will come and stick themselves to the Christmas seals. This too was showing financial fearlessness and faith in God, as the reasoning mind said, keep every cent you have, as you are not sure you will get any more. She bought the seals, paper, and twine, and a few days before Christmas received a gift of several $100s. Buying the seals and twine had impressed the subconscious with expectancy and opened the way for the manifestation of the money. She purchased all the presents in plenty of time. Man must live suspended in the moment. Look well, therefore, to this day. Such is the salutation of the day. He must be spiritually alert, ever awaiting his leads, taking advantage of every opportunity. Taking advantage of every opportunity. One day, I said continually, silently, Infinite Spirit, don't let me miss a trick. And something very important was told to me that meeting. It is most necessary to begin the day with right words. Make an affirmation immediately upon waking. For example, Thy will be done this day. Today is a day of completion. I give thanks for this perfect day. Miracle shall follow, miracle, and wonders shall never cease. Make this a habit, and one will see wonders and miracles come into his life. One morning, I picked up a book and read, Look with wonder at that which is before you. It seemed to be my message for the day, so I repeated again and again, Look with wonder at that which is before you. At about noon, a large sum of money was given to me, which I had been desiring for a certain purpose. In a following chapter, I will give affirmations that I have found most effective. However, one should never use an affirmation unless it is absolutely satisfying and convincing to his own consciousness, and often an affirmation, and often an affirmative, is changed to suit different people. For example, the following has brought success to many. I have a wonderful work in a wonderful way. I have a wonderful work in a wonderful way. I give wonderful service for wonderful pay. I have a wonderful work in a wonderful way. I give wonderful service for wonderful pay. A third time. I have a wonderful work in a wonderful way. I give wonderful service for wonderful pay. I gave the first 2 lines to one of my students, and she added the last 2. It made a most powerful statement, as there should always be perfect payment for perfect service, and a rhyme sinks easily into the subconscious. She went about singing it aloud, and soon after did receive wonderful work in a wonderful way, and gave wonderful service for wonderful pay. Another student, a businessman, took it and changed the word work to business. He repeated, I have a wonderful business in a wonderful way, and I give wonderful service for wonderful pay. That afternoon, he made a $41,000 deal, though there had been no activity in his affairs for months. Every affirmation must be carefully worded and completely cover the ground. For example, I knew a woman who was in great need and made a demand for work. She received a great deal of work, but was never paid anything. She now knows to add wonderful service for wonderful pay. It is man's divine right. It is man's divine right to have plenty, more than enough. His barns should be full, and his cup should overflow. His barns should be full, and his cup should flow over. This is God's idea for man. And when man breaks down the barriers of lack in his own consciousness, the golden age will be his, and every righteous desire of his heart fulfilled. What is a righteous desire? These are the things that we must ask ourselves, and to see that if we are willing to shine the light in the right places, the view really does change this hue of the man or woman who is in the frame. So I'm going to wrap up tonight and say I find it interesting that there are no comments anywhere. So we'll see what the dealio was. Oh, probably because I didn't share it to Facebook. However it goes. Anyway, I did what I came on for, which was to read the section on forgiveness and to say it is time for us to set ourselves free from the past, but also having a forgiveness ceremony could be very useful also. And I am working through my own experience of the equivalent, and will share that with you when it's ready, if I feel like I can, without disrespecting the healing that is taking place in the process with those that are also involved in the story that I am telling, because it is my perspective of my life, but others are also involved in my life who are in the story that may or may not wish to have their side of the story shared, right? So these are the things that I've been learning. And that's enough for this night. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I wish you a wonderful evening, and I send love. Peace out. Peace in. Peace be with you. Peace be in you. Peace be you. As my friend Neil Sperling always says, peace profound. Large. Namaste. The light in me honors the light in you. Thank you.